Welcome to the Perry Noble Leadership Podcast, where we have our first sponsor.
Who's that?
Actually, we don't. I just wanted to say that because I got tired of saying we have no sponsors.
You kind of surprised me for a second. I was excited.
The Perry Noble Leadership Podcast is sponsored by me. I'm paying for everything right now, so I guess it's sponsored by me.
I'll throw in $20.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
This podcast is sponsored by Cole.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm super excited about this podcast because coming up on a new year, and it's 4 reasons I see incredible potential for the church in 2023. Like,
I'm excited about this one.
why does that have you excited? You told me right before we started this has you excited. What about that excites you?
I just think that I'm all about the church, man. I love the church. I believe in Jesus and his power to do things in this world, and I think if the church grows, that does nothing but do better for us in our country and the world, whatever, all of it.
I think it makes our nation better, no matter who's in the White House. Hello. Oh my gosh, they're about to get political. Let me just do a side note. We did a whole podcast on that. I'm so glad that William Wilberforce did not separate church and politics, because if he would have, then we wouldn't have had ended the slave trade when we did. But because of his love for Jesus and his love for people created in the image of God, that dude got political.
Even like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, man. Like
Dude,
some of these
guy
people
was
that
straight BA. I mean,
Man.
that dude, he didn't play, man.
No.
Anyway, sorry, back to the... so in college, Cole, I took a journalism class taught by a guy that couldn't write his way out of a paper bag, which is why he was teaching journalism. But I do remember one thing he said, and I thought it was his quote, but I later on learned it was somebody else's quote. If it bleeds, it leads, and how people are just attracted to the negative more than the positive. Like positive, think about this. You can watch a 30-minute news segment. They will have you on the verge of diving off of cliff, and then the last 2 minutes they'll tell a story about how a puppy got rescued. But if they led with that story, everybody, we're just drawn to the negative. If it bleeds, it leads. And listen, I've been in church work since 1990. I've seen this every year. More people are leaving the church than ever before. More people are not believing in God than ever. More people don't read their Bibles than ever before. More people don't do this. More people, the church is going to, I've seen, and I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying after like 25, 30 years of seeing this, I think it's time for us to change our mindset, because some people are worried. Honestly, these things, when I see them now, they get me excited.
Something that interests me so much is it's almost like people in the church are obsessed with this statement, like the world is worse than it's ever been, or the church has never been this bad, and it's fascinating to me because I always think like, man, does Jesus really lose? Like, is he losing? Are we okay with saying that? And I would argue no, he's not losing.
Well, and to say the church has never been this bad, I mean, about 400 or 500 years ago, they were burning people at the stake. I think we've made some progress. I think we've came a long way.
I mean, the world's always had a sin problem. It's manifested itself in different ways throughout the years. But I think at the end of the day, I'm with you. I think we should focus on the positive.
Absolutely. So let's talk about these positives, these 4 reasons.
4 reasons. Number 1, the more people that are out of church means there's more potential to grow.
When I hear this, there's more people out of church than ever before. There's a record number of people not attending church. For me, I get excited because I'm like, if there's a record number of people out of church, that means there's a record number of potential people that we can reach with our church. Jesus said the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few, and that's so true. The workers, let me back up. The harvest is plentiful. There's a lot of fruit out there. It's sometimes we just don't, as the church, we don't want to do the work to go get them. And people aren't leaving the church because they can't find one, especially here in the South. There's a church on every corner. They're leaving the church because they're not connecting to Jesus, and they're not connecting to other people in that worship service.
Yeah.
I hear this all the time. If a church is growing, this is what I hear. It's all God. It's all God. And it always bothers me. And I've actually started correcting people because I'm like, it's actually not all God. It's all God working through people who work. Because if it was just all God, then every church in America or the world would be growing, because wouldn't God want his church to grow?
Yeah.
But you can't be a lazy, lethargic, passive leader and then blame the fact that your church is not growing on the devil. He probably don't even know where your church is. So I'm just saying.
I mean, if it's not on us, like, there's no point in Jesus even giving the Great Commission at all. Like,
100%.
we are his plan.
I do believe it's all God. I believe it's all God working through people who work. So there's two questions when it comes to this. Under the more people out there means the more potential for our church to grow. Two questions I'm always asking is, what do we need to start doing, and what do we need to stop doing? Like, for example, for us, what do we need to start doing? We had to start a 5 p.m. service on Sunday nights. The reason we had to start doing that was because we're out of room on Sunday morning. At 9:15 and 11 o'clock, we are out of room. And so we had to start that third service because we didn't say, you know what, screw it. If you get a place, you get a place. If you don't get a place, you don't get a place. That would have been nice, but we had to start that 5 p.m. service. And then what do we need to stop doing? I would tell churches, anything that you have to manufacture energy for, you need to stop it. Like if you're getting on stage and going, we're so excited about this, and in your mind you're thinking, dear God, I wouldn't come if they didn't pay me.
Yeah.
You need to quit it. Yeah.
I've been a part of some churches in the past where, coming on staff, you see things like that, and it's so difficult because the answer is like, we've always done it. We've always done it this way, and you're like, hey, this is dying. We need to let this die. And I think one of the hardest things for leaders is to recognize, hey, this is dead. Let's let it go. It served its purpose. Let's let it go.
When the horse dies, take the saddle off a horse and go. Don't rename the horse.
Don't try to ride it.
Don't rename the horse. Don't rebrand the horse. The horse is dead. Thank God for the time that the horse was here. Go find another horse.
Yeah.
Save a horse, ride a cowboy. That was probably completely inappropriate, but I do like that song.
It's fine.
It is.
Yeah.
It's good.
Number 2, more people are asking questions that the church actually has answers to.
Now, this is hilarious because, so I'm driving down the road the other day, and I'm looking at church billboards and church signs all the time. I think more people are going to hell because of church signs, I said hell, than anywhere in the world. Our Sundays are better than Baskin Robbins. Well, Baskin Robbins Sundays suck if you've ever eaten one. So that's why I'm not coming to your church. Anyway, so I rode down the road the other day, and there's this church, I won't call the name of it, but they always put their sermon title up for the next week. And the sermon title that I saw was, Lift Up Your Eyes, for Your Redemption Draweth Nigh. Now, personally, I know what that means. I got a little King James in me, and I kind of get it. I'm like, man, that's kind of awesome. But I started thinking, if I don't go to church, and I look at that church marquee, there's nothing about lift up your eyes, your redemption draweth nigh. Like, who says that? That is, so I'm saying all that to say, we want to talk about theological issues. And listen, I'm all about having great theology. But at the end of the day, nobody is sitting in their house this week trying to figure out the impeccability of Christ issue. They're not trying to figure out the tulip. They're not trying to figure out limited, unlimited atonement. They're not thinking, and if they are, they have no friends. They're thinking about things like gender confusion, sexuality, abortion, politics, and COVID, and what the church should and shouldn't. Those are the things they're thinking about, but the church is scared to talk. Scared to talk about. We actually have the answers to those questions, but I think for the most part, churches are scared about getting canceled. And let me just pause real quick. The church ain't getting canceled. Jesus said he would build his church, and it's
not even the gates.
I mean,
of hell.
there was an empire that tried to cancel the church one time, the Roman Empire, and it
didn't go well for them.
Didn't go well for them. Did not go well for them. I mean, their emperors were named Caesar and Nero, and today that's what we name our dogs.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah, man. I had a lady last night we had church last night, and
Students, yeah.
students, and she found me after the service and was asking me basically like, my dad just died unexpectedly. Like, how can God be good? Like, and I'm always just reminded those are the things that people want to hear as well. Like, people are looking for the answers to like personal, like, how do I go one more day without looking at porn, and how do I, like very personal issues. And I think we do get tripped up by all this theological stuff sometimes in the church. Like, people are just trying to live life.
You know you're teaching theology well when Jesus met people where they are, and he brought them where they needed to be. Mm-hmm. So Peter, Matthew, James, John, those guys, brilliant theology, right? Mm-hmm. But they didn't have that brilliant theology when they met Jesus. Mm-mm. They were fishing, they were collecting taxes, and Jesus met them where they were. And over time, he brought them to where they needed to be. Mm-hmm. And that's where we got to get comfortable as a church.
I kind of want to flip this over for a second too. Like, I think one of the problems some leaders have is I don't think we do a great job of also saying, I don't know.
100%.
Like, again, back to this, like, I don't know why my dad, I'm sorry, I don't know. And I think that takes a lot of humility, but I think in that you find that people actually respect that and want to follow you more, just to simply admit, like, I don't have all the answers.
I'm as confused as you are, and all I can do is be here, be your friend, and pray with you through it, and hopefully God will give us an answer in His time. And if He doesn't, that's where faith comes in.
Yeah. Sorry, not to flip your point.
No, you're
on its
good,
head.
man. That's good.
You good there?
I'm great.
Okay. You ready to move on to number 4?
No, number 3. We haven't done number 3. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting excited.
I know.
Number 3, people are craving the supernatural more than ever before. I'm going to amen this before you even talk about it.
It's insane. The church should own the market on the supernatural. Just read the book of Acts. I mean, when you get, so Acts chapter 2, wind and fire fall from heaven. Now,
I would like to see that.
Here's something. When you get wind and fire together, there's one thing I can promise you: you can't control it. You can't control wind and fire. Wind and fire are going to do what wind and fire want to do, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how the church started. And in 2,000 years, we've taken the supernatural and made it boring and predictable. There's no room for God to work anymore sometimes. I mean, think about, I've heard that people just aren't interested in supernatural. It's not true. Like several years ago when Harry Potter hit the books and eventually the movies, those, what's the lady's name that wrote those? What's her name? I can't think of it.
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, J.K. Rowling. Okay, that woman swims in money.
Yeah.
But you know what? I watched all the movies. It's basically good versus evil in a supernatural form. And at the end of the story, Harry Potter gives his life for his friends. I'm sitting there watching it going, hey, I've seen this somewhere else. Jesus gave his life. Jesus is greater than Harry Potter. But we made the story so boring. We gave Jesus feathered hair, and he's always trying to hug, and he's crying all over people. Yeah. And I just think people flock to the supernatural, but we won't flock. The church won't address the supernatural because at the end of the day, it gets weird at times. And I would always say to that, God's not weird. People are weird. Mm-hmm. So if you ever had a weird supernatural experience at church, don't blame God. Blame Miss Johnson because she's weird.
Yeah. How do you? So, just for some context, we're not ultra charismatic. You know, we don't
pass out tambourines.
Yeah, we don't sing 15-minute songs. Which, no offense if you do.
You do you, boo.
We are a little bit more structured in our services. Mm-hmm. How do you, as a leader, leave room for moments like that where God wants to do something different, or, you know what I mean?
For me, I work and prepare the message all week long. I probably put in 15 to 20 hours of work on every message that I preach. But I'm 100% comfortable knowing that when I step up on the stage to preach, I've only got about 80% of the content that I'm going to preach, because most of the time the Lord will give me like revelation, and you've seen it. I'm like, oh my God, I just saw this. Do y'all see this?
Yeah.
This is amazing. Look at this. And then at the end of the service, there are times where I've been like, listen, I really feel like the Holy Spirit is telling me, and that's been, I don't do that every week.
Yeah.
I don't make an appeal of, there's a 30-year-old in here with back problems. Well, I just hit every 30-year-old because we've all got back, we all got back problems. But I think
So it's a heart posture.
it is. I think you got to create an environment where people can experience the presence of Jesus, because when you do that, they'll have their own supernatural moment. We don't have to create that moment.
Oh, wow.
And then when we create that environment, the potential for the supernatural to happen is absolutely unlimited. We create the environment and we let God do the rest.
Amen, man.
Thanks, dude.
You should write a book about that or something. I don't know.
I don't know. Need to write a book.
Number 4, more people crave to be a part of something that is bigger than them and something that makes a difference.
So I saw this, man. So here's a confession. I watch TikTok just about every night.
It's dangerous,
Well,
man.
Shannon, my wife, hates my TikTok because it's all either sports related or political related.
Yeah.
And she likes the ones of the dogs that like fall down the steps and stuff. So she thinks my TikTok's boring, but so I'm not sure when this podcast is coming out. I think we discussed it earlier, but I've already forgot
November
it.
sometime.
Yeah. So, but this past Saturday, I just watched on television the last 10 minutes of the Alabama-Tennessee football game.
Crazy.
And it was absolutely bonkers. Okay, how crazy did Tennessee fans go after that game?
Absolutely wild.
They tore and I loved it. They tore the goalpost down.
It's crazy, man.
But I saw more Tennessee TikToks in the past 72 hours than I've seen in the past 72 days.
Yeah.
But Tennessee fans are like, you know what? We had a common experience. We were a part of something big. We were a part of that moment. Now, what's cool about that is if you're a Tennessee fan, you beat Alabama. The thing that's not cool about that is in 100 years, that won't matter. But what the church does will matter. That's why I think we should be more passionate, more excited, and more intentional than college football or pro football or anything about reaching people far from God.
Yeah.
So, and then take, for example, the hurricane that just went through Florida, hurricane relief. People will absolutely donate to that just about overnight because they want to be a part of something that's making a difference. So when we can have a common experience that's making a difference on a consistent basis, people will give their lives to it. And that's what, as the church, we're called to do. Create a common experience that makes a difference on a consistent basis. And when that happens, you won't have enough room for the people that are going to show up, because at the end of the day, you take all that that's happening in the church and then you make it personal to everyone. How many times have you heard me say this, Cole? I don't want to build a big church. I want to build great people. Great people will cause us to become a big church.
Yeah, and in fact, I know you get accused of this a lot. Like all you care about is growing numbers and stuff like that. And I kind of laugh when I see people say stuff like that about you, because you've actually pushed back. You've done the opposite and pushed back, and you haven't rushed into like, let's just go build another big building. And yeah, that's awesome.
Well, and at the end of the day, yes, I'm obsessed with people giving their lives to Christ. Busted, guilty. That whole Great Commission thing.
Shame on you.
Yeah, that whole Great Commission. See, you think it's the Great Suggestion. I think it's the Great Commission. I took it seriously, and I think the church needs to do everything we can to make that a reality. So I honestly think for the church, Our best days are ahead of us. They're not behind us. And oh my gosh, COVID says, yes, COVID did set us back. COVID sucked. I hated every minute of it. But at the end of the day, we can't blame it anymore. It's time to move on because the potential has never been greater to reach people far from God.
So long story short, get after it in 2023.
Let's do it.
I love it. Any final thoughts?
That's it. Thank you for listening. And Cole, thank you for sponsoring this episode.
I owe you $20.